Welcome to Frida Miletsky Healing Arts. I'm your host, Frida, and I am the healing artist. Friends, last time we hung out, I was really riding the emotional wave and in the thick of things dealing with a housing situation. And since then, I think that was about 5 days ago, when I recorded that episode. Since then, I have ridden the emotional wave and done some emotional processing around it. So today, for the Hump Day Healing, I wanted to share with you the art of emotional processing. Perhaps it's something you're familiar with, perhaps not. In starting off, because it all sort of ties together and was part of my processing of what's going on with our housing situation, my friend Cassidy took me to see The Thing About Jellyfish at Berkeley Rep this weekend. I am so lucky because my really good friend Cassidy is an actor, and I love theater. I've loved it my entire life. It's something that I've always engaged with. And it is so cool to have a friend who has connections to the theater to both know what's going on all of the time and also have like those equity actor ticket access to getting sort of discount tickets and all of that. So I get to see way more theater than I would if he was not my friend. It's kind of like having that pal that's really into movies, and then you get to go see a lot more movies because they're like, oh my God, you want to see this? Do you want to see this? Do you want to see this? So I feel really genuinely lucky. And he actually is understudying for the two male roles in The Thing About Jellyfish. So it was awesome to go see this play. And I hadn't heard of it before, but it's actually like a young adult novel from like 2015. And yeah, it was totally new to me. And this play felt like I was just absolutely in a YA novel from start to finish in it. The revelations in it are very 13-year-old girl and, you know, that sort of young person profound. It was absolutely beautiful. Like the sets at Berkeley Rep are always a double plus plus plus. This has a moving set pieces that are just like, wow, is what I would say. If you want to see resource theater, like that is the place to go. It was just top notch. And if you're unfamiliar also, like I was, it's a play about losing a childhood friend, death. She's in middle school. She's going through the process of losing a friend and then sort of like having a logical, scientifically driven mind and trying to put the scientific method towards like why? Why did this happen? And the whole overarching theme and where she arrives at the end is sort of like sometimes there isn't a why. And surrendering into sometimes there isn't a why. And it really hit me watching this play that can absolutely relate to our roof situation. Sometimes there isn't a why. And moving into acceptance of, sometimes things just are, and then we deal with them. So what is the art of emotional processing? It is the cognitive and psychological process of understanding, regulating, and expressing one's emotions. And how do we do that? Well, first we sort of feel in our bodies what's coming up for us. It's getting really clued into you. So I'm just going to walk you through the process that I went through over the last maybe 5 days to arrive at neutral around the roof and it leaking. So what's involved in the art of emotional processing? And that is we are going to identify our feelings, analyze their causes and consequences, and develop coping mechanisms to effectively manage them. And ultimately, what all of this does is make sense of emotions to achieve a healthy emotional state. And that's what all of us want, right? I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with people that sort of bump through the world, being triggered left and right, lashing out, blaming. Like, you know what those people are, right? We call them a Karen, right? Like having an absolute meltdown about things when their personal reality is disrupted. Ideally, we would like to each learn to regulate our emotional state and do so in such a way that we don't show up in the world impacting our reality and other people around us. Because what can we control? We can control our own reactions to things in the world. We can control our reactions and our responses. We cannot control the world around us, but we can control how we show up in it and how we behave. Okay, so last time we talked, I was really riding the emotional wave about the roof. So in that moment, last time we talked, I was very, tearing up. And I was having a physical response to the situation. And that physical response was, when I think back to how I was experiencing it, I think that I had a tightness in my chest, like a heart closing in a way, like a rubber band around the chest area. And I also felt it in what I'd call my brain stem, sort of like on the back of the neck, going up into my brain, into the brain. And what was happening for me was my brain was going, figure it out. Where does the money come from? Figure it out. What now? How can we make this stop? How can we rectify this situation so we understand where the money comes from to fix the problem? So I'm cueing into those body responses, and now we're going to identify those emotions. So recognizing and labeling the emotions that I'm experiencing. Well, the emotions, cluing into those body feelings, how would you put language to them? Well, language I always use would be disappointed. I'm disappointed that the roof is leaking. I'm perplexed. That's another one. How is this happening to us? How did we buy a house that was newly renovated? The roof is very new and we're already having some issues. Like, why? I'm perplexed. How is this happening? Threatened. I feel threatened because this is an unexpected cost that we were not intending to have, and it is threatening our wallets. I feel rejected because I feel rejected almost by like the state of California, because it's so incredibly expensive to live here that I feel like it's pushing us out in a way. So I'm feeling rejected. How hard can one work? How much does one have to have in order to have a small piece of something, to be a property owner, to be part of this, to be part of something? How, it's just, it feels unfair. And I just feel like California doesn't want me or something, so I've rejected is the word I would use. Disappointed. Oh, I'm so disappointed that this isn't working out. We came from a housing situation where we had a condo in a building with only a few other units, and we did a ton of construction renovation. We really worked together as an HOA to bring the building up to code, and we really worked together to make that a safe place to live. But going through all of that and dealing with all these construction workers and all of that was honestly extremely traumatic, and it was a lot. It was extremely expensive, and going from that into a house where we were like, we're going into the newly renovated house. Like, this is what we're choosing so that we don't have to do that kind of work again. I'm disappointed because, darn it, here comes work again. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed that we thought we were getting something that we aren't. Like, I thought the house was completely secure, and I'm embarrassed that I didn't know better. I feel like tricked, kind of. And I'm hurt. Like, my feelings are hurt that we made this decision to live here. We bought this house, and I'm hurt that the roof is leaking. It's like painful in a way. I feel really powerless, almost like a despair, because the first reaction also is, how do we pay for this? Like, it keeps coming back to that, like the sort of like, darn. And then I'm going to go to victimized also. There's a lot of victim consciousness for me around this, which is feeling like the situation in California is really predatory. The housing market feels predatory, and I feel victimized. Taken advantage of, like you have to go to extremes to even get a teeny little piece of things, and the whole situation is completely and totally unfair. That's how it feels. Okay, so I've identified all of these emotions. Those were a lot of emotions. Now we're going to understand the source. Analyze what triggered these emotions and what are the underlying reasons. Well, I don't really want to go into it because it's not something I want to put on blast necessarily. But what I would say is that my husband and I have been together for like 20 years. Is that true? 18, 19 years? A while, a long time. And in the time that we have lived together, we have experienced a fair amount of trauma about housing. So the two of us, if you were going to pick something that we came here to learn together, our discomfort and our challenge within our marriage is around housing. And this is our third location that we have been in together that has had fairly significant issues that are, I would say, take a bite out of the wallet, and put it that way. And I feel like that's enough to share so that you get an idea that this is a cycle, isn't exactly the right. It is a common theme. It is a common theme that the two of us have experienced. And we kind of side-eye each other and we're like, when can we learn this stuff and be done with this? How do we get out of this cycle of difficulty around with housing? And it is the one place, I swear to you, in our marriage that we experience challenge. Everybody's got something that they're working on, and that's the way that it expresses in our lives. Now we're going to do a cognitive appraisal, making meaning of the emotion and its significance in the situation. I think it's okay for me to be disappointed that we have a leaking roof. With everything that we've been through, I understand the perplexed feeling, the hurt. I understand the despair and the powerlessness. And it all comes back to feeling victimized. I'm in victim consciousness around housing. And that is something that I truly want to shift in my life. I see it clearly, and I have been working on it, and we're working on it together right now. Also, this comes to my codependency. My codependency is to want to take things on and handle them so that they do not impact my husband's life in a negative way. To make things as comfortable as humanly possible at home in order for me to feel safe. Now, this has nothing to do with him. Nothing. This is me. This is my stuff. And my codependent behavior shows up the most in my marriage. I am really great with boundaries outside of it. I mean, I used to be codependent with a lot of people, and I've worked, for years now on working through my codependency. And I'm really great with my husband as well, but occasionally things will just come up, and this is a trigger. The housing stuff is a trigger. How can I make it as easy as possible for him? Because he's so uncomfortable around the housing stuff that I don't want his discomfort in my energetic field. So in order for me to feel safe, I want to take everything on myself because it's more comfortable for me to try to figure out how to keep him from going into despair or hurt or victimization. And the way that that shows up for me is my brain flips into, how can I make the money? How can I make it all at once? Where do we get this number from? How can I take extra work? What could I do to create this number? And how can I do it in a way that doesn't impact his life at all so that he can stay as cheery as possible and I feel safe? This is all, codependency is all about manipulating a situation so that the codependent can feel safe and secure. It's all about making a safe environment to be in. And again, this isn't something that he's doing. This is my stuff. And it's just showing up as something that I'm working through in my marriage. So then, and I talk this stuff out loud with him. Like, me sharing this is not new. Like, I see my codependency, I call it out on the regular. I used to just do it, and then I recognized, I'm like, that's not helping anyone. How can he learn and grow if I'm the one behind the scenes making sure that absolutely everything works and makes his life as easy as possible? That's not fair. We need to come at this thing 50-50. So now I am very vocal about all of the things. And he's in this with me, and we're making it work, but he's also going through his own stuff where he's uncomfortable. You know, that's his story to tell. Okay, so now we're going to the emotional regulation, managing the intensity of the emotion and finding healthy ways to express it. Well, quite frankly, the way that I do emotional processing is I need to feel the feelings. So last time we were together and we chatted, or you were listening, I was tearing up, right? So I had to have a cry about it. I had to be in the thick of it. I had to really feel these feelings, acknowledge them. And then the way that I worked through them, the way that I got to the emotional regulation of becoming neutral, is I sat in meditation. I brought these feelings. I felt them in my body. Where is it? The tightness in the chest. And I brought the light into those areas and just allowed them, surrendered to the feeling completely, and I just allowed it to move through my body and process out. That was one way. Another way was I went into nature and I walked in the woods. And every step that I took as I'm walking, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I brought the feelings up, so the tightness in the chest, the brainstem, the overactive mind. I took the overactive mind and I said, you have a mantra to run. The mantra is the Ho'oponopono prayer. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And I'm saying that while I'm doing my 4-4-4-4 breathing, my box breathing, walking, asking the land, because I work with the land and I work with nature a ton, asking the land, please help me process this energy down through my feet. Help me return it to source to be recycled for the highest good of all. Help me come to neutrality around these feelings that I'm experiencing with this housing situation, with this roof. Help me not be angry with the roof. Help me get to neutral. Help me not feel victimized with the roof and the housing situation. Please help me get to neutral with this, and just allowing the feelings to be felt and then processed through my body. Just allowing them to leave. I don't want to hold on to them. I just want them to come up, feel them, release. Surrender, release. Surrender, release. Other ways that I worked through this is I went to yoga. I took it to the mat. So I sat in the yoga class and I allowed the feelings of disappointment, embarrassment, hurt, powerlessness, the victimization, feeling perplexed, threatened, and rejected by the state of California. I allowed them to sit in my field. I allowed the pain to penetrate my body and my heart, and then I allowed them to leave. As they came up through the meditation practice, I nodded to them, and I'm sorry, what I meant is the meditative act of yoga. So I'm moving my body, and I use yoga as a meditation practice. So my body is in movement, and my mind is with the breath, it's with the movement. If these things came to mind through the movements, through the breath, allowing and releasing. So I'm moving through the feelings. And this took a few days. This didn't just happen. But using all of the tools that I just shared, I got to neutral. And that is the art of emotional processing. I hope that was helpful to share that with you. This is how I live my life. This is how I have lived my life for the last 5 years. I had a teacher, Katie Rubin, in the past, and she said, you have to feel it to heal it. Something she also said that really stuck with me is at the bottom of all of these things is grief. And we need to grieve in order to move forward, to really feel and grieve the loss. And to get out of this victim consciousness, what I needed to do was go into the center of all of those feelings, and at the center is grief. At the center of all of that is, this is disappointing and I need to grieve the fact that I feel all of these things, and we're in another sticky situation with housing yet again. And on the other side of grief, there's just sort of an acceptance of this is what it is. And after acceptance comes this tolerance of, well, now we just deal with it and not take it personally. The house is not attacking me and my husband. And I would take it one step further and to ask, how can I use this situation to forward my spiritual growth? How can I use this situation to speak up, to ask questions, to not get tricked by contractors, to use my voice to make sure that I stand tall and we understand the services that we are being given, we understand what we're buying, we make a choice of somebody that we'll feel confident to work with, and just come to all of it from a place of empowerment. And that feels complete to me. So I do want to celebrate before we go here. I want to share that I've had 2 days of my emotional boot camp, morning meditations with my seed members, my 2 seed members in my Member Up platform. And it is called Return to Self-Love Now. I went online to look at trademark stuff with Return to Self just to double check, am I stepping on any toes? And it turns out I was. There's actually a gal out there doing something incredibly similar to myself. And I was like, whoops, let me change the name of this before I release it to the public. All's well and good. It's, and now my program is called Return to Self-Love. So when I came up with this idea sometime last year, I had done a little looking online to see if that was taken, if the name was taken, and people had talked about it. It was like on episodes of things, but I didn't see it as like a specific program name that was trademarked. But in the time that it has taken me to get to the point to release the program, it is taken. And I was like, whoops, should have looked at this a little sooner, but it's all good. It's all good. No harm, no foul. So I would share with you that my program that I'm releasing on Member Up is called Return to Self-Love. And I would love to invite you to be part of this. And I would love you to be on my email list. So please go to my website, which is fridahealing.com. And there's a little form there that you can give me your email address and I will include you in things. So if this resonates, let's connect. All right, friends. Thank you for joining me, and I love you. God, Universe, Source loves you. Have a wonderful day.